So you might have seen that Donald Trump recently gave a press conference at the Department of Justice.
What am I going to do? And when are you going to do it? And I answer them by saying,
if there were a meter like miles per hour and you were measuring lies per minute, it would have been off the chart. Let's go through just a few of them. So here's Donald Trump calling Mike Flynn a great patriot and talking about how he's been through some really hard times.
General Flynn, thank you for being here. There's a man who went through hell, by the way, and he shouldn't have it.
Now, Michael Flynn pleaded guilty twice to lying to the FBI. It was only with the intervention of Bill Barr, no doubt under instructions from Donald Trump, that the Justice Department intervened to dismiss the case against Michael Flynn. So here's Donald Trump talking about the Justice Department before he took office and appointed all of his criminal defense lawyers to the top positions.
But first, we must be honest about the lies and abuses that have occurred within these walls. But these are people that are bad people, really bad people.
That's right. This is the typical Trumpian narrative that the Justice Department under Merrick Garland was horribly weaponized against poor Donald Trump. It was corrupt and all the rest of that nonsense. So what happened during the 4 years under Merrick Garland? Well, they investigated the January 6th attacks on the Capitol. They indicted countless people for breaking into the building, beating police officers, gouging them. They went up the chain of responsibility, and they indicted the guy who incited the violent attack, Donald Trump. A grand jury heard the evidence, found probable cause to believe Donald Trump committed multiple crimes. Similarly, they investigated Donald Trump for bringing boxes and boxes of highly classified documents to Mar-a-Lago, being dishonest about it, withholding them, obstructing the investigation, and again, a grand jury found probable cause to believe Donald Trump committed multiple crimes. So what was the Department of Justice really guilty of? What they were really guilty of was treating Donald Trump like any other American citizen, neither better nor worse, applying the rule of law to him as they would apply it to any others. But in Donald Trump's mind, that makes them wicked, evil, corrupt, you name it. Here he is saying that he pardoned hundreds of innocent protesters, political prisoners.
Please convict me, don't say that. I pardoned hundreds of political prisoners who had been grossly mistreated. We removed the senior FBI officials who misdirected resources to send SWAT teams after grandmothers and J6 hostages.
Okay, he pardoned 1,550 people who had committed crimes at the Capitol on January 6th, many of whom, hundreds of whom, had beaten or assaulted police officers. That's who he pardoned. So here he is talking about Eileen Cannon, the judge who dismissed the Mar-a-Lago documents case against him.
We had an amazing judge in Florida, and her name is Eileen Cannon, and I didn't know her. I still don't know her. I don't believe I ever spoke to her, even during the trial. But I did appoint her, federal judge, and these fake lawyers, these horrible human beings, were hitting her so hard, public relations-wise. They were playing the ref.
That's right. He thinks she's brilliant. She's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Her opinions have been way out of the mainstream. They have been roundly criticized by legal and constitutional scholars. And if the case had been allowed to go to completion, she would have undoubtedly been overturned. But of course, Donald Trump thinks she's great. It was a case founded on the facts. It was found by a grand jury to be solid. That itself is bullshit. It was a case that was properly investigated. A grand jury found probable cause to believe Donald Trump had committed crimes at Mar-a-Lago, and to treat him differently than any other person bringing boxes of classified documents to their home, lying about it and obstructing the investigation into it, would be to treat him the way he wants to be treated, that is, as a king above the law. Eileen Cannon might think that's all right, but that is not how the justice system is supposed to work. So here's Trump talking about Norm Eisen. Norm Eisen is a constitutional scholar. He works for a nonprofit organization called CREW. That is a public interest organization trying to root out corruption in the government. No wonder Donald Trump doesn't like CREW. But here's what he has to say about Norm Eisen.
Norm Eisen, I don't even know what he looks like. His name is Norm Eisen of CREW. He's been after me for 9 years. And the reason I'm saying this, Todd, is I'm only going to get one chance to say this. But these are bad people.
Now, interestingly, if you caught it, he tells the assembled prosecutors, I'm only going to get to say this once about Norm Eisen. And then he attacks the character of the organization that he works for. This is basically Donald Trump signaling to prosecutors, hey, I want you to read between the lines here, whatever tax-exempt status or whatever they have, I want you to investigate it, I want you to repeal it, I want you to go after them, find something. This is a graphic on-camera breakdown of the wall, the post-Watergate wall between the White House and the Justice Department, particularly when it involves specific cases. And here's Donald Trump. It wouldn't be a Donald Trump press conference if there weren't some lies about the last election. So here's Donald Trump talking about the election.
And what a difference a rigged and crooked election had on our country when you think about it. And the people who did this to us should go to jail. They should go to jail.
That's right. There he is again, calling it rigged, calling it terrible, etc. I don't think I need to belabor the point. We had a free and fair election. Donald Trump lost. He can't accept his loss, and he continues to peddle this big lie about the 2020 election. Here's Trump on the subject of Russia.
But we had a good relationship, and we had a professional relationship, and his respect for this country.
That's right. He says he thinks we're doing really well with Russia right now. Well, can't quarrel with that. I'll bet you are. And here's Donald Trump once again lying about how much we've spent to support Ukraine and how much Europe has spent to support Ukraine.
Not only have we spent maybe $350 billion to Europe, think of that, $350 billion to $100 billion, and yet we're across the ocean far away.
That's right. We haven't spent anywhere near $350 billion. And in fact, Europe has spent more supporting Ukraine than we have. So here's Trump talking about an increase in crime.
The last administration presided over the worst increase in violent crime in our country in many, many decades. We had levels of violence and crime, and a lot of it had to do with the illegal immigrants that came in. Remember when I used to complain?
Well, that's not true either. In fact, immigrants account for less crime than native-born Americans. They have a lower rate of criminal activity than people born in the United States. Okay, but this may have been the biggest lie in the entire press conference. Here it is, Donald Trump talking about his support for law enforcement.
My message to these law enforcement heroes is simple. With me in the White House, you once again have a president who will always have your back, will always have your back.
That's right. That's Donald Trump saying to law enforcement that he will always have their back. Was there ever more palpable lie than that one? This is the same guy who pardoned hundreds of people, who beat police officers, who gouged them, who bear sprayed them. He wants you to believe he's always going to have law enforcement's back. No, Donald Trump, you turned your back on law enforcement. In fact, if anything, you gave them the middle finger. And here he is talking about the U.S. attorneys around the country that he has just fired.
And last month, I fired all the radical left pro-crime U.S. attorneys appointed by Joe Biden. There were so many that were bad, and I know there were some that were probably very good.
That, too, is rubbish. Claiming that the U.S. attorneys appointed by Joe Biden were somehow corrupt or weak on crime, that is just nonsense. Now, here he is talking about calls he is supposedly receiving from other nations.
I'm getting calls all the time from even leaders of other countries saying, sir, the whole world feels liberated now. It feels like there's a light over America, but there's a light over the whole world. I hear that so much. It's so nice to hear, too.
That's right. We're to believe that countries all over the world are calling Donald Trump to say, thanks to you, we feel liberated. Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what the Canadians are calling to say right now. I'm sure that's exactly what every NATO ally is calling to say now that Donald Trump has said, essentially, he won't honor our commitment to NATO, and he doesn't think they're going to honor their commitment to us. Yeah, I'm sure they're calling to say, we feel liberated. Well, that is also just nonsense. So here he is talking about the results of his tariffs.
I put on the tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. Unbelievable results have been seen in the last few weeks. Unbelievable results. They weren't happy about it.
That's right. He wants us to believe the results have been tremendous. Well, the only way they've been tremendous is they have been tremendous in wrecking our economy. Just take a look at the market response to Donald Trump's tariffs. Doesn't look very tremendous to me. And if you look at the price of everything, including his vaunted eggs, it's going through the roof. And here he is doing a valedictory to all the great people that have served in the Department of Justice. Let's listen to the list.
Americans like Wyatt Earp, Elliot Ness, Frank Hammer, Rudy Giuliani.
Wait a minute, Rudy Giuliani? You mean this guy? The guy with the hair dye running down his face? He's in the pantheon of great leaders of the Justice Department? I'm sorry, I don't have anything else to say about that. It's just absurd on its face.